The year was 1971. A new nation, Bangladesh, was struggling to be born. It was a birth soaked in blood, tears, and unimaginable suffering. The Pakistani military machine, aided by local collaborators, unleashed a reign of terror. We're not talking about small numbers here. We're talking about up to 3 million people, 3 million lives extinguished, millions more displaced, women subjected to systematic rape, villages burned to the ground. This wasn't just a war, it was a genocide. A desperate fight for language, for culture, for the very right to exist as a people. The world watched, often in silence, as these atrocities unfolded, etching deep scars into the collective memory of a fledgling nation. Among those collaborators were groups like Jamaat-e-Islami and its brutal student wing, Islami Chhatra Sangha, which formed militias like Al-Badr and Al-Shams. Their mission? To systematically eliminate intellectuals, activists, and anyone who dared to dream of an independent Bangladesh. They were the enforcers, the informants, the ones who knew the local terrain and the people. They guided the Pakistani army to their targets. They participated in the killings, the torture, the rapes. This wasn't a distant enemy, these were often neighbors turning on neighbors, making the betrayal even more profound, more personal. The aim was clear: to cripple the spirit of Bengali nationalism from within, ensuring that even if independence came, the nation would be forever haunted. For decades, the wounds of 1971 festered. Survivors grew old, carrying their trauma in silence. Perpetrators, in many cases, roamed free, sometimes even rising to positions of power. Imagine that, living in a country where your tormentors could be your political leaders. Then, in 2009, a glimmer of hope. Bangladesh established the International Crimes Tribunal, ICT. Its purpose: to finally bring to justice those accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide during the Liberation War. It was a monumental undertaking, fraught with political challenges, but it represented a promise to the dead, to the survivors, that their suffering would not be forgotten, that accountability, however delayed, was possible. These trials were never just about retribution. They were about establishing a historical record, about confronting the darkest chapter in the nation's history. They were about teaching future generations the price of freedom and the dangers of fanaticism. For many Bangladeshis, the ICT verdicts, when they came, were a validation of their long-held pain. They were a step towards healing, towards closure. The convictions of high-profile war criminals sent a powerful message: impunity would not last forever, or so we believed. This pursuit of justice was seen as essential for Bangladesh to truly move forward, to build a future on the foundations of truth and reconciliation, not on denial or political expediency. Enter ATM Azharul Islam, a senior leader of Jamaat-e-Islami, not just some low-level foot soldier. He was accused of being a commander of the notorious Al-Badr militia in the Rangpur region during that horrific period. The charges against him were chilling: genocide, mass killings, rape. Specifically, he was implicated in the Jaruabil massacre in April 1971. Think about this: 1,256 unarmed civilians allegedly murdered under his command. 13 women subjected to rape. These weren't abstract accusations, these were tied to specific, horrifying events, to real people whose lives were brutally cut short or forever scarred. This man was a symbol of the collaborationist terror that plagued Bangladesh. In December 2014, after a trial at the International Crimes Tribunal, Azharul Islam was found guilty. He was sentenced to death. The evidence presented included eyewitness testimonies, documents, and accounts of his role in orchestrating these atrocities. For the families of the victims in Jaruabil and Rangpur, this verdict was a moment of profound, albeit somber, vindication. It felt like justice, however delayed, had finally caught up with a man accused of unimaginable cruelty. The legal process had run its course, the evidence weighed, and a judgment delivered. It was a testament to the ICT's work, a step towards national healing, or so it seemed at the time. The legal battle didn't end there, of course. Islam appealed his conviction. In October 2019, the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, upheld his death sentence. His appeal was rejected. This was it, many thought, the final word. He filed review petitions, as is his right, presenting legal arguments. Years passed. Then on May 27th or 28th, 2025, a date that will now live in infamy for many, the unimaginable happened. The very same Supreme Court, a 7-judge bench chaired by Chief Justice Syed Rafat Ahmed, acquitted ATM Azharul Islam, just like that. The death sentence previously upheld was overturned, vanished, and the reason? The court stated the original death sentence was handed down without proper assessment of evidence leading to an unjust verdict. They cited a lack of dispassionate consideration of evidence after years of trials, appeals and reviews. After the highest court itself had previously upheld the conviction, suddenly the evidence wasn't good enough. What changed so drastically? Crucially, no detailed public explanation for this stunning reversal was provided. For a decision of this magnitude, a decision that reopened such deep national wounds, this silence, this lack of transparency is not just a legal footnote. It's a slap in the face to every victim, every survivor, and every citizen who believed in the judicial process. The news of the acquittal hit Bangladesh like a shockwave. Immediately protests erupted. Students, often the conscience of the nation, took to the streets. At Dhaka University, at Rajshahi University, young Bangladeshis voiced their anger, their betrayal. They chanted slogans against the interim government, accusing it of trying to rewrite history, of rehabilitating war criminals. At Rajshahi University, these student protesters clashed with activists from Islami Chhatra Shibir, the student wing of Jamaat-e-Islami, resulting in injuries. The battle for Bangladesh's soul, for its memory, was once again being fought on its campuses. A visceral reaction to what many saw as a profound injustice. But not everyone was outraged. Some celebrated. Asif Nazrul, the law advisor to Professor Muhammad Yunus's interim government, openly welcomed the acquittal. He even linked it to the ousting of Sheikh Hasina's regime in August 2024, as if this was a natural, positive outcome of that political change. ATM Azharul Islam's lawyer declared his client fortunate to be alive. Shafiqur Rahman, the current chief of Jamaat-e-Islami, naturally celebrated the decision. He also took the opportunity to refer to previously executed Jamaat leaders convicted of similar war crimes as victims of judicial killings. And then, the audacity, he offered a vague apology for any harm caused by his party, saying to err is human. Genocide, an error? Let's look at the timing, shall we? Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, whose government initiated and oversaw the war crimes trials, was ousted in August 2024. She's now in exile. An interim government led by Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus is in power, promising elections by June 2026. Jamaat-e-Islami, which faced significant restrictions and whose leaders were prosecuted under Hasina, is now reorganizing, openly preparing for these upcoming elections. And just as this political realignment is happening, a major Jamaat leader, previously convicted for masterminding a massacre, is acquitted. Coincidence? Or a calculated political maneuver to appease certain factions and reshape the political landscape? And what about the international community? Those Western nations and human rights organizations that were so vocal about alleged human rights abuses under Sheikh Hasina's government. Where is their condemnation now? This shocking acquittal, the lack of judicial transparency, the clear political undertones, surely this warrants some concern. Yet there's a curious, deafening silence. It raises an uncomfortable question. Is international concern for justice and human rights in Bangladesh selective? Does it depend on who is in power? The Week magazine noted this silence, and it's a silence that speaks volumes, fueling cynicism and a sense of abandonment among those who fight for historical truth in Bangladesh. This acquittal doesn't just affect one man or one case, it sends tremors through the entire foundation of Bangladesh's judicial system. The integrity, the independence of the judiciary, it's all under a massive dark cloud now. If a conviction for crimes as grave as genocide and mass murder, a conviction that was scrutinized and upheld through multiple layers of the judicial process, including by the Supreme Court itself, can be so easily and opaquely overturned, what faith can anyone have in the system? It suggests that perhaps the judiciary is susceptible to political pressure, that its decisions can be swayed by shifts in the political winds, rather than by the unwavering principles of law and evidence. The gravest fear now is that this acquittal could open the floodgates. If ATM Azharul Islam can walk free, What's to stop other convicted war criminals, or those whose appeals are pending, from seeking similar outcomes? Are we about to witness a systematic dismantling of all the progress made in holding perpetrators of the 1971 atrocities accountable? Is Bangladesh's hard-won historical narrative, paid for in blood, about to be rewritten to suit a new political agenda? This isn't just about legal precedent, it's about national identity, about the memory of foundational trauma. The very soul of the nation feels like it's on trial, and the verdict so far is terrifying. It's impossible to ignore the current political climate in Bangladesh when analyzing this decision. An interim government is in place. Elections are on the horizon. Parties like Jamaat-e-Islami, which were politically marginalized and whose leaders faced justice for their role in 1971, are now seeing a resurgence. This acquittal feels like a green light, a signal that the past can be renegotiated, that old scores can be settled not through truth and reconciliation, but through judicial and political maneuvering. Add to this the reports of a repressive atmosphere where dissent against the caretaker government is met with harsh measures, and a disturbing picture emerges. The past atrocities are not just history, they are deeply intertwined with the present and future political trajectory of Bangladesh. This is not just a Bangladeshi issue. The denial of justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The silence from the international community is more than disappointing. It's a form of complicity. When a nation's highest court makes such a controversial decision with such little explanation, especially one tied to crimes against humanity, the world needs to pay attention. We, as global citizens, must encourage the people of Bangladesh to keep questioning, to keep demanding accountability, not just from their leaders, but from their judicial institutions. The truth of 1971, the suffering of millions, must not be erased by political expediency or judicial opacity. The fight to preserve that memory and the justice owed continues.